So good morning, everybody. I'm Juliet Bouverie. I'm Chief Executive of the Stroke Association, and I'm absolutely delighted to talk to you this morning. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what a stroke is, the scale and impact of stroke, how the pandemic has affected stroke services, and then what we do at the Stroke Association and how excited we are about our new partnership with In a Wheel. So what is a stroke? Well, I think the people who are best positioned to describe the experience of a stroke and the consequent recovery are stroke survivors themselves. So I'm just going to share with you a short advert.
So I was in work, it was a Friday.
It was my 7th birthday party.
There's something not right and I start to panic.
My mind was not coming together.
I can't move my right hand side.
Massive sharp pain.
Explosion.
My brain fell out.
Thought I would die.
My body drained. And then I disappeared.
I woke up and everything was spinning.
The light was like needles.
Your life is in a trap.
Over time, it's getting better.
Hopefully some of these fingers might work again.
Every day is a challenge.
You need that extra support to get you through.
I am Baz.
I'm Paul.
I'm Luna. I'm a stroke survivor.
I am a stroke survivor.
I'm Alicia, and I'm a stroke survivor.
So Max, Alicia and Paul shared their stories with us using their own words. And the big message we wanted to get across with that TV advert is that stroke can happen to anyone. It doesn't discriminate and it can affect anyone at any age, at any time. And there's a common misconception that stroke happens only to older people. Now, the reality is that sadly, more younger people are getting strokes. And now we know that 1 in 4 people of working age is living with a stroke. We also wanted to present a positive message that actually stroke is not necessarily a death sentence, that actually many people can make a good and positive recovery after stroke. So what is a stroke? Well, there are 3 main types of stroke. The first is an ischemic stroke, which is basically a brain clot, a blood clot, which stops the release of blood to the brain. The second is a hemorrhagic stroke, which is a brain bleed. It's less common, but often very serious. There's also a third type of stroke, which is a TIA, a transient ischemic attack, often known as a mini stroke, where actually the stroke symptoms may be temporary, but actually it's still just as serious because often mini strokes can be a precursor to a major stroke. Now, the important thing about recovery is that we want blood to be restored to the brain as quickly as possible. And that's why acting fast is so imperative, because the quicker that somebody can be sent to a hospital and can get access to the life-saving treatments that are available in specialist stroke units, the more likely they are to survive and the more likely they are to make a good recovery. So that's why it's so important that more members of the general public know about the FAST test. Now, we raise awareness of 3 main symptoms of stroke. If you see somebody's face drooping, if you see somebody having difficulties raising their arm, or somebody having difficulties with talking and their speech becoming slurred, any one of those 3 symptoms is a possible indicator of a stroke. And a stroke is a medical emergency and time really matters. So please do call 999, because as I said, they can then get access to those critical life-saving treatments within the magic 4-hour window, and they're more likely to make a good recovery. But there are other symptoms of stroke too. These include sudden weakness or numbness in different parts of the body, sudden blurred vision or loss of sight, sudden memory loss, confusion or dizziness, maybe a severe headache or vomiting. If you spot any one of these unexplained medical symptoms, please don't hesitate. Call 999 straight away. So how big a problem is stroke in the UK? Well, there are more than 100,000 new strokes each year, and there's 1.3 million stroke survivors alive with their stroke today. But sadly, stroke is still the fourth biggest killer in the UK, and 1 in 8 stroke survivors sadly do not survive their stroke. And almost 2/3 of stroke survivors leave hospital with a disability. In fact, it's a little known fact that stroke is the single leading cause of complex adult disability in the UK. And as a consequence of that disability, stroke is costly. It costs the UK economy around £26 billion a year. And stroke affects everyone differently, but it has multiple and complex effects on different parts of the body. It can affect people physically, for example, people having difficulties with walking or numbness or paralysis down one side of their body. It can affect people's ability to speak and comprehend. It's a little known fact that 1 in 3 stroke survivors have a condition called aphasia, where they struggle with their speech and comprehension. It can affect people's emotions, it can affect people's behaviours, and also for a lot of people, they may struggle with their memory and short or long-term thinking. And what's unique about a stroke is its suddenness. It comes on in a flash. And so not surprisingly, many stroke survivors struggle emotionally and psychologically to come to terms with the effect of a stroke and having to adjust to a new norm. In 2018, we did what we believe is the world's biggest survey of stroke survivors and carers. 11,000 people responded to our survey, and they told us about their lived experience of stroke, and some really strong themes emerged. What a lot of stroke survivors told us was that one of the biggest difficulties for them was handling the hidden effects of stroke, those effects that were not visible to others, but were a real challenge. For example, overwhelming fatigue, and not surprisingly, a lot of anxiety, but also some worrying levels of post-stroke depression. Stroke survivors also told us that when they were discharged from hospital, they just felt there wasn't enough support for them in the community, and that rehabilitation was not available for as long as they would have liked it. Stroke survivors also told us that stroke impacted on their independence, and for many stroke survivors of working age, stroke affected their ability to either stay at work or go back to work. And a shocking 85% of carers told us that they don't feel they get the support and information they need to help them in their caring role. So how has COVID-19 affected stroke services? Well, it's fair to say that in the same way that it's affected all of us and our families and loved ones, the pandemic has had a huge impact on stroke services. At the beginning of the first lockdown last year, we saw a worrying delay in people calling 999 and a 30% drop in people being admitted to hospital with stroke symptoms. We saw people being discharged more quickly from hospital with greater levels of disability and need. When we surveyed stroke survivors last summer, they said that they were having real difficulties accessing rehabilitation and support in the community, and that it just either wasn't there or was available online or by phone, which for some was difficult to access. And carers of stroke survivors really reported that they were struggling. They told us that they were feeling increasingly burdened because of the fewer support services out there for them and their loved one, and also that they were feeling more socially isolated with family and friends not being able to pop in. The pandemic also had a major impact on research. Nearly 3/4 of stroke research studies have had to be paused or stopped as a result of the pandemic. And the Stroke Association experienced a sudden and dramatic reduction in our fundraised income, which meant that our research budget has been cut in half because of the pandemic. And the problem is that if these research studies do not resume and charitable and government funding does not increase for stroke research, then potentially we're going to see a slowdown in new breakthroughs for stroke treatment and rehabilitation. So that may all sound a little bit bleak, but now I want to go on to some more positive messages about what the Stroke Association does, because we're the UK's leading stroke support charity, and we're here to support people to rebuild their lives after stroke. Our vision is for there to be fewer strokes and for people affected by stroke to get the help they need to live the very best life that they can. And our big message is that stroke recovery is possible and that we're here to rebuild lives after stroke. We have 3 simple but ambitious goals. Our first is to make stroke the priority it needs to be. I think you'll all agree that despite the prevalence of stroke, it just does not get the public attention and funding that other equivalent conditions like cancer, dementia, heart attacks get. We want to change that. We want to make sure that governments across the UK, policymakers, the NHS, research funders, and the public really understand the scale and impact of stroke and take action to make stroke the priority it needs to be. Our second goal is to ensure that every stroke survivor and their carer gets access to that essential rehabilitation and lifelong support that they need to rebuild their lives after stroke. And we want to address the huge postcode lottery that exists in stroke treatment and care, where what you get sadly depends on where you live. And our third goal is to partner with people and communities to help them take action on stroke. We know that we, the Stroke Association, cannot tackle the challenge of stroke on our own. And there's lots of people out there who want to make a difference. So we want to support and inspire people to make a difference by giving time, voice, and money. So how do we make a difference to those 4 goals? Well, we have 4 main ways. The first is that we provide information and support services. Secondly, we fund research. Thirdly, we influence and campaign for policy change. And then finally, as I've said, we work with and engage communities across the UK to take action on stroke. So in terms of our services, where we're funded to do so, we have wonderful local stroke coordinators who help people when they're discharged from hospital to achieve their recovery goals. And they provide wonderful practical and emotional information and advice to support people with that recovery. We have a universal telephone helpline that's available for everyone in the UK that provides, again, a listening ear and lots of practical information and support for how to prevent stroke and for how to support somebody to recover from stroke. And during the pandemic, we worked with the NHS to start a new telephone support service called Stroke Association Connect. And this is where we phone people within 48 hours of being discharged from hospital to find out how they are, to offer reassurance and to signpost them into available support services. We also started another service during the pandemic called Here For You. Now, this is a volunteer service where volunteers phone people affected by stroke to offer a chat and companionship when people are feeling lonely and isolated. And finally, we have some fantastic online resources, both on My Stroke Guide and our website, where we have information guides and over 200 videos that explain the consequences of stroke, what action you can do to reduce your risk, and how you can support recovery. And this includes some great videos on how to remain physically active if you're chair or wheelchair bound, and also how to deal with the emotional effects of navigating our way through challenging times. So I'd just like to share with you Krishna's story to bring our Here for You service to life.
Since it's lockdown, I thought, why not try and make a cake, because that's one of the challenges that I still find hard. I made a mistake, so I had to start all over again. My name is Krishna. I had a stroke in 2005 when I was only 18 years old. Things were tough at that time. I wasn't able to read, write, speak, and I had lost all my memory. I found it hard to do simple things like brushing my teeth, showering.
I've recently spoken to somebody, and you know, it really brought it back to me. Those of us who have had a stroke know all too well how lost you can be, and that's what we're trying to do at the moment. The Stroke Association have created this new service Here for You, being able to speak on the phone to somebody who's gone through that experience in their life.
When the coronavirus lockdown happened, processing all that information was a bit of a challenge.
There's no two ways about it. The stroke can be a very lonely experience. As a volunteer for the Stroke Association's new Here for You telephone support service, I keep in regular contact with my matched stroke survivor by phone.
Normally I would go to the shops. At the moment I'm not really leaving the house. The Stroke Association have helped me by checking on how I am.
We are here to give that little bit of extra help and support, to help people along, to rebuild their daily life and go forward.
It's an immediate connection, even though our journeys are different. A familiar person on the other side of the phone can make a big problem go away.
We are survivors, which means we are here to tell the tale, to assure others that there is life after stroke.
This service is vital. In times like these, they're really trying to support stroke survivors as fast as they can.
So I hope you found that as inspiring as I did. And through all of our support services last year, we helped over 62,000 stroke survivors. Now, our research is a vital part of what we do, and we've been funding stroke research for over 30 years, and we've spent £56 million during that time. And it's fair to say that our research has resulted in some real breakthroughs. It was as a result of our research that we came up with the highly successful FAST test. And also we've created a game-changing new clot-busting procedure called thrombectomy, where the blood clot is actually physically sucked out of the brain. And that has significantly helped to reduce death and disability associated with stroke. But sadly, stroke research is underfunded, and we published a really important report last week, which describes the priorities that need to be invested in for stroke research, but also revealed some shocking data about how underfunded stroke research is. So stroke research only receives 1.2% of public and charitable spend. And the latest data shows that per person, stroke research only received £23 compared to for cancer research when it was £161 per person per year. And we really want to close that gap. We're also an influencing organisation. we want to campaign for policy change because we know that can make a difference to tens of thousands of stroke survivors. A few years ago, we ran a highly successful campaign for stroke to be included in the new NHS long-term plan for stroke. We've been campaigning recently on stroke research, calling for more funding into stroke research to save research and rebuild lives. We campaigned for stroke awareness through the Act Fast campaign. And last year, when we published our Stroke Recoveries at Risk report in September, we had over 8,000 supporters who wrote a letter to Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, asking for stroke not to be overlooked during the coronavirus pandemic. And we also engage with people and communities, inspiring people to give their time, voice, and money to stroke. We have a network of over 200 wonderful stroke support groups across the UK who provide peer support, so fun and friendship through group meetings. And that's because stroke survivors tell us that the single biggest thing that makes a difference to their recovery is connecting with and hearing the experiences of other stroke survivors. We also have our wonderful volunteer stroke ambassadors who are out there in the community, raising awareness of stroke, advising people on stroke risk factors, and shining the spotlight on the Act Fast test. And we partner with all sorts of different communities across the UK. So community groups like arts and leisure centres, local councils, other charities. So for example, we've partnered with the International Bangladeshi Centre in Sunderland and helped to translate our materials into their languages so we can get some important stroke messages across to their local communities. And talking about partnership, I now want to come on finally to our really exciting partnership with Inner Wheel. And I really mean it, we're hugely excited about what we're launching today. So we will be sending you all a partnership pack. It may have arrived already. If not, it will be arriving over the next couple of days. And that will explain all the different ways in which you can get involved in supporting the Stroke Association. So I'm just going to give you a few examples now to whet your appetites. So the first thing that you can do is raise much needed funds for the Stroke Association. We're going to be sending you cardboard collection boxes. And if each of you were able to put 20 pence into that collection box every week, we'd raise an amazing £100,000 for stroke. We'd love you to get baking. We're going to be sending you a bespoke Inner Wheel baking pack. We really hope you'll get involved, particularly on World Stroke Day, which is October the 29th. We'd love you to sign up for some of our fundraising events. If you're a keen cyclist, you can get involved with Spin for Stroke, but we also have quizzes and all sorts of other simple ways to raise money. Now, for those of you who are brave, and you do have to be brave because I did this myself, we do have 2 places for next year's London Marathon. And that is an amazing way of getting your family and friends involved and helping to spread the word about stroke. So we'd love it if 2 of you would take up those places. And we're also giving you tips and advice on how to create your own fundraising event, be that arts and crafts, a plant sale, a garden party, a raffle. All the information and advice is in the pack. But we'd also love it if you felt that you had the time to volunteer for us. I hope that Krishna's story may have inspired you to want to be a Here For You volunteer. I'm a Here For You volunteer. I just had to go on a 2-hour training course, and now I'm budded with a wonderful stroke survivor who I speak to once a week. You could also get involved in supporting your local Stroke Association peer support groups. All those groups are run by fantastic volunteers. We'd love you to raise awareness in your community through your networks and help out at one of our many events. And then finally, please do spread the word. We'd absolutely love it if you could raise awareness of stroke. Maybe you have connections with a local company like a golf club or a social club or other community groups that might like to partner with us. Or maybe you're active on social media, on Facebook or Twitter, where you could share our campaigns and help us get our messages across. Well, we're really keen to hear from you, and we really want to know about all the things that you're up to, including your wonderful fundraising activities. So please do share your stories, please share your photos with us. We'll share those successes online and through our PR team. And that will help to raise awareness of the wonderful work of both organisations and shout about the amazing things that we're doing to support people in our communities. So our regional fundraising team are here to support you throughout this experience. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with them. And finally, once I've got over my little cough, I'd be delighted to take any questions from any of you now. So thank you.